Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from me, Hendrik Fourie. This is the 15, my podcast where I talk about all things rugby that interests me and from a South African point of view. Today we're going to talk about a few things. We've had a full weekend of rugby. We're going to talk about the men's Six Nation results. We'll talk about some URC results and the table as well. We're going to talk about upcoming matches, URC and SA Cup matches. We'll have a bit of a prediction time, also known as I Am Always Wrong. We'll discuss one of the obscure laws of rugby, as I call them. And then I'm also going to give my red card for this episode. Right, so as everybody or any rugby lover around the world would know by now, the Six Nations is over, the men's Six Nations, and what a tournament that was, a fantastic championship. I really enjoyed watching it. It's got so much character, so much soul, and so much history behind it. It was really worth watching. We'll definitely be following it again next year. This was the first year that I followed it intensely, and I was definitely surprised at how much I enjoyed it. Just to run over the final table results. In the first position, as you would know, France, then Ireland, Scotland, Italy, England, and Wales. Unfortunately, the wooden spoon for them. But nevertheless, they ended their run with a great win over Italy. And my prediction is that Wales is done with the absolute losing streak. I think they've turned the corner. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Don't be surprised if Wales reaches the quarterfinals at next year's World Cup. That's going to be something, and that's going to be it. Probably it will be my favorite European team to support next year. But absolute congratulations to France. They thoroughly deserve it. It was close for Ireland as well. Ireland also only having lost one match, France having lost one match. But at the end of the day, the French were just too polished. And Thomas Ramos, Mathieu Jalibert, the little general Antoine Dupont, Louis Biabierre, those guys really were excellent. The whole French team was excellent. It was just an absolute wonderful match to watch. France v England, the final match. It was a beautiful game to watch. And if you weren't a rugby lover before that and you watched it, I'm certain you will be a rugby lover now. So that was really wonderful. Throughout the tournament, there were a lot of good players. And I will definitely miss out some of them. Some of my personal favorites that I've come to know much better during this tournament was Alex Mann and Erin Wainwright from Wales, Louis Biabierre, Mathieu Jalibert, Rhys Carey, I think, and Kyle Steyn also. I've known about Kyle Steyn, but he had a magnificent tournament. There's a lot of players that had a really good tournament, and I'm sure everybody has their favorites. But to me, those were some of the standout players, and well done to all of them. From an international point of view, we're now moving on to what they call the Nations Championship. I don't know if I really like the entire concept of it. What it boils down to, especially from a South African point of view, is that the Springboks will be playing all of the Six Nation teams throughout the course of this year. The first round then, of course, will be over the weekend of the 3rd and 4th of July. And just a quick summary of what's to be expected. That's a couple of months still in the future. But it's going to start off with South Africa versus England in Johannesburg at Ellis Park. So from an English point of view, I suppose that's not the greatest prospect at this stage when you didn't quite get the result that you wanted. I'm sure they will be well prepared, and it's going to be a great test. But nevertheless, that weekend will kick off with South Africa v England and New Zealand v France. That will be an amazing match to watch as well. Australia v Ireland, and then Argentina v Scotland. Then we have Fiji, Wales, Japan, and Italy. So that's the first round of the new so-called Nations Cup on the 3rd and 4th of July. That is something to look forward to. Right, next up, we're going to talk about some other rugby results, especially from a South African point of view and a URC point of view. We had the Bulls playing the Stormers coming off of, I believe it was a 4-streak loss record, and they came back in a resounding way. The Bulls, especially in the second half, absolutely imploded, and the Stormers ended up taking that match 32-10. That was a rescheduled URC match. Elsewhere, Edinburgh played Ulster. Ulster took that match 14-19. I believe that Edinburgh would be quite disappointed in that result, and would probably be quite happy that many of the star players are returning, probably as of this coming weekend. And the third rescheduled match was Connacht v Scarlets. Connacht won that match 31-14. So just from a log or table standings point of view, all of the teams, all 16 teams are now equal on 12 matches played. So it sort of levels things out in terms of just understanding where everybody lies now that everybody's played the same amount of matches. We have 6 regular rounds left, so everybody still has 6 matches to go. And it's quite interesting because even the very bottom of the log team can theoretically still make it into the top 8. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to keep the competition alive right up to the end, I believe. The goal, of course, is to end in the top 8 so that you can qualify for the playoff matches. Then, from a pure South African point of view, we had the SA Cup that's gone into its second week. For those of you who don't know what the SA Cup is, it is a preliminary competition for South African provincial teams in order to qualify for the Currie Cup. So at the end of the round robin phase of this competition, the top 4 teams will qualify to play in the Currie Cup later on in the year. The remaining 6 teams will then also play in the basically it's a Currie Cup A division. But so the point of this SA Cup would be to end in the top 4 positions so that you can qualify for the Currie Cup later this year. Then, well done to the Springbok Sevens team, who last night, South African time, I think it was around between 10 and 11 last night, they clinched the Sevens World Series, played in the final against Fiji in New York, and beat them 10-7. Well done to those guys. That's really something to be proud of, and big congratulations to them. We saw what it meant to them at the end of that match. Right, so let's return to the future and talk about the up and coming matches. Of course, no Six Nations this weekend, no international rugby in terms of test matches, but we have the URC back in absolute full swing. Can't wait for that. Only from a South African point of view, on Friday, the Bulls are playing Cardiff at home. Bulls at home. That's 7 o'clock on Friday night. And we on Saturday, the Lions, my personal, the team that I support and that I grew up supporting, will be playing Edinburgh at 2:45 at Ellis Park in Johannesburg on Saturday afternoon. Straight after that would be the Sharks v Munster in Durban in KwaZulu-Natal at 5 o'clock. And then on Sunday, the Stormers will be playing the Dragons at 3 o'clock in Cape Town. That's all going to be great matches. All for the South African team still have an opportunity to qualify for the top 8 and thereby also, obviously, for the knockout rounds. And we hope that all of them can reach the top 8, although it's going to be a bit of an uphill struggle for the Sharks as I see it at the moment. Even the Bulls and Lions are not guaranteed a spot, but they are sitting in a better position than the Sharks. The Stormers, of course, a bit higher up in the ranking, although points-wise, there's not a massive difference between the Stormers and then the Lions and Bulls behind them. In terms of my prediction time, or as I call it, I'm always wrong time. Um, I won't stop predicting because it's part of what makes life interesting and what makes rugby interesting. The Bulls v Cardiff Friday afternoon or Friday evening at 7 o'clock. I believe the Bulls will bounce back after their loss against the Stormers and they will win by a small margin, anything between 2 and 10 points. But I believe the Fortress Loftus will play its part and the fans will demand a win after last weekend. On Saturday, the Lions v Edinburgh. The Lions have been in great shape the last couple of, let's say, the last 2 months with the on and off matches. Edinburgh, on the other hand, has not been in great shape. It's going to depend on the amount of Edinburgh players that were selected for Scotland that's going to be available. I think that would play a role, but traditionally Edinburgh hasn't travelled well, especially to South Africa. It's going to be a tough day at the office for them, but we've seen stranger things happen, and the Lions will really have to play good. It does look like great weather, like running rugby weather on Saturday at Ellis Park. I give it to the Lions by 10 points plus. Straight after that is the Sharks v Munster at 5 o'clock in Durban. And I must say, in current shape, I'm giving it to Munster by 5 points. Munster is quite higher up in the table. I don't think the Sharks have really sorted out the new game plan under JP Pieterse. And I think they're struggling a little bit at the moment. Lastly, Sunday, Stormers v Dragons. I'm going to give it to the Stormers by 10 points. They've had a few losses in a row now. They would want to get back to their winning ways, especially after last week when they trounced the Bulls in a certain sense. I give that one to the Stormers by 10 points or more. In this section, I want to just quickly touch on a law, and I'm going to try and make it a regular section where we discuss some of the rugby laws, and I like to call them obscure laws because there is such a variation in interpretation, and we saw that again this weekend with the match between France and England in terms of the deliberate knockdown where a call was changed mid-play. I think it didn't benefit England, it benefited France, I believe, if I remember correctly. So the law is 11.3, and it states a player must not intentionally knock the ball forward with hand or arm. The sanction is a penalty. So firstly, I'd like to say that I've seen many yellow cards for that. So if it's close to a try line, I suspect, and it might um, stop a try from being scored, I suppose I can understand that, but the sanction is only a penalty if it's intentional. Now, my issue with the law is, having also played rugby, it's an absolute reflex to try and reach the ball if it's passing in front of you. So I'm not sure whether I can always agree with the referees whether it's intentional or whether it's purely a reflex. I've seen a lot of them happen, and in my view, 9 out of 10 of them are purely reflex. And I know that one of the interpretations they use is to say whether the ball was slapped down or whether they try to catch it from the bottom upwards, if that makes sense at all. I don't think that's a good way to determine intent, because if you simply have a reflex just to reach out to the ball, it can be any direction. So I would just like to see consistency in terms of that, and maybe some explanation from World Rugby as to how they're going to deal with that going forward. Yeah, so that's just in terms of rugby laws and what I call an obscure law in the world of rugby. Lastly, I want to hand out a red card. In this section, I'd just like to speak my mind, and my red card would go to SA Rugby in this instance. And it concerns the SA Cup, the tournament that I mentioned earlier, where the non-URC provincial teams in South Africa are playing, whereby the top 4 teams qualified to play in the Currie Cup later this year. Firstly, very few of those matches are televised. So I don't understand how SA Rugby think that these smaller teams, in what way they must generate money if they don't get, if their matches aren't televised. Maybe one or two of them at the most get televised, and I obviously believe that they've got a contract with DSTV for the rugby, but I think it's unjust that these teams don't get, their matches don't get televised. At the very least, they could televise them on our government, let's call it our government channel, SABC. That somebody should be able to televise these matches. I think it's quite important. And my next gripe with SA Rugby is the fact that the Currie Cup winners from 2025 have to qualify again. So Griquas won the Currie Cup last year in a final against the Lions, and this year they have to re-qualify to play in the Currie Cup. It makes no sense at all, and I think that's an injustice to the Griquas team. And I hope that they can sort something out. Obviously not this year, but going forward, that a team that wins the Currie Cup automatically qualifies for the Currie Cup for the next year. In fact, I'd love to see a promotion relegation system where the Currie Cup winning team actually has a chance to qualify for the URC competition for the next year. I'm not saying they must automatically play there, but there must be at least an opportunity for them to qualify for the URC. So that's my red card for the week to SA Rugby. Let me be clear about that. Right, so from me, Hendrik Fourie in South Africa, Johannesburg. Have a great weekend, have a great week and weekend, and hopefully I will see you at the park this Saturday.